What's up, Fiery 49 folks? We are back at Fiery 49 today. Christmas parade's coming up soon, so we need to get our truck ready to go. So what you see here, if you remember a few months ago, or I guess a month ago, had a tire go flat. It shredded the flap, the tube inside and stuff. Probably will never know exactly what happened, but it's gone. But we ordered new tubes, new flaps. Going to get that in today and get our doubles, get our duals back on the rear. The big difference on these, I don't have the old to show, but if you go way back in the saga of purchasing the truck and trying to get tires, all the COVID stuff, supply chain issues, we had a really hard time sourcing tires for the truck that fit the original wheels. Had a friend that eventually found a source and imported us a set from China at a time we couldn't get anything else through domestic imports, domestic manufacturing, that kind of stuff. So we had the tires. The tires came with tubes and flaps, part of a package deal. We had all six. One thing I did notice on the tires, the flaps that came with it, they were super thick. They barely fit. We really struggled getting those in compared to these. They were almost, I would say, easily a quarter to a third wider in overall width around it. So that may have had something to do with it. Could have had it bound up. But we're going to put these properly sized tubes and flaps in, at least for this one today. We've got it extra so we have a flat. The one big change before when we used it, several commented when we showed what we were doing, but the tires had been stored outside. They were very wet on the interior. So basically down inside there, inside the tire was full of water, which meant that using the baby powder that's commonly used to lubricate everything on the inside could have gone bad for us because the baby powder would clump. It wouldn't dry out. It wouldn't lubricate because the water would have made just a mucky mess inside. So we mixed up some tube lube, basically just soapy water, and used a water method to lubricate everything and put it in. And the other five had no problems. One did. But since everything is now dry, since we're back in covered storage, we're going to use the baby powder today. No water this time. So we'll go through the process of getting the tire, the tubes, the flaps all together here with the baby powder instead of a water-based lubricant, and get Fiery 49 back on all 6 feet. The baby powder is just a lubricant. It's a dry lubricant versus the soapy water stuff we used last time. But basically, what we're trying to do is make sure everything finds its happy place inside of itself. So as the tubes, the flaps, and everything go together, the powder just makes sure things, if they're not where they want to be, it kills enough of the friction on everything that it can slide across itself into each other. And I'm being messy because we're in a bit of a hurry, but as always, we got other places to be. But the tube's inflated right now because I just, this is straight out of the package. Just trying to get it inflated up, make sure there's no leak in it, and let it kind of take shape before we put things together. All right, located a valve stem tool. We'll take that out. We'll get our tube deflated so we can get it inside the tire here. Sorry for the noise of the air compressor if it's disturbing. Figure like we had before, so. Once I get this tube mostly in, I'm going to inflate it back, just blow it up to get it to take hold in the tire, and then I'll put the flap in. Just filling it up here. That just lets the tube fill the space in the tire. Looks like it's in a pretty good spot. All right, so you can kind of see the flap. I've got the back half of the flap in, but this is where it gets tough, where the tire has that set and it's got that very narrow opening on it. Trying to get this side of the flap. It's going to lay inside the tire like you see here, but because the opening is so narrow, it's hard to get it in and get it started. So I'm going to put some air back in the tube again just to push things out with the flap half in. Just trying to squeeze this thing out, make enough room, and try to find that sweet spot of inflated enough that the tire opens a little bit, but not so inflated I can't get the tube or the flap to slide past the tube. But you can kind of see this is sliding in now. So the tube is pushing the tire open some for me, and the baby powder is letting the rubber pieces slide past each other instead of grabbing each other. Looks like that may work out. All right, so pretty good position here. Flap is in, center line of my flap, center line of the tire. The only thing that's really not where it needs to be right now is the valve stem and the tube there are still a little caught behind the hole in the flap. So everything is in, but it's too snug for me to move this. I'm not going to force it. We'll let some air back out, get the valve stem out where it needs to be, and fill one more time enough to get everything in place. Then we can put it on the wheel. All right, now we're where we need to be. You can see the valve stem comes out, makes the turn. That way, when the wheel goes in, it can make the turn out for the wheel so you can get the air chucks and stuff on it. Our flap is centered. Everything looks good. That's through where it needs to be. We'll put the valve stem back in. I'm going to put just a few, maybe a pound or two, back in this to hold it in place so that as we put the wheel through and feed the valve stem, it doesn't push back and get lost behind the wheel. But we can't put too much in because too much air and it'll push the flap into the rim and not allow it to slide over. This should just slide right in minus the friction of getting the valve stem back. All right, I didn't have a good way to show getting the valve stem through and not have my back blocking the camera and all that, but basically I've got the valve stem is back in. I've got air pressure in everything right now. That's why the tire is pushed out past the rim. I did that because we put it in with the inner tube basically deflated, pushed the valve stem back in, got it through the hole in the back side of the rim, and then let it come up, and basically with everything flat, got the back bead over the rim, walked the flap and tube in, and then the tire went down over it. And then I put the valve stem back in, and I've just blown it up. That way everything, the tube and the flap, can all find where they want to be and not be bound up before we put the retaining ring back on. So basically it was just a matter of when that had no air pressure in it and I could bend that easily, bent it back through the hole on the side of the rim, got it through, picked up and got the beads around at level, pushed over the tire and slid on. We'll pull that valve stem back out now, let this deflate. You should be able to see the tire push back down past the bead of the wheel, and once it's deflated, we'll put the retaining ring on. You can see the tire as the air goes down, moving back down past the wheel side. All right, core of the valve stem is out, tire's back down. You can see with the air out, the tire is well clear of the rim. So what we're looking for now, valve stem, there's our notch for getting the ring off. This has offsets in it that allow it to work back around. So these thinned areas, we go to opposite sides and see how that's starting to take a seat underneath. And basically we'll just get a sledgehammer and knock this thing back on. All right. Tap all around. Now that's loose because there's no air pressure in the tire. So this is on. It'll move freely, but all that lip is now underneath the wheel. And when you put air pressure in, the flanges will catch each other. So we're going to wrap the tire up, put some straps on it, just in case it flies apart. We'll get a remote chuck, put it back on, and air the tire up. We've moved this assembly away from people, away from the buildings. I'm going to put on this air chuck. This will hold itself on so we can step away, but I'll chuck it on, and we're going to give the initial feel about 50 psi. We'll let it sit and stabilize, check it, and then we can crank it all the way up to the 90 it's supposed to have in it. All right. We'll let that slowly fill, let that ring take a seat on that wheel while we stand safely away.
You already got 80 in it?
Yeah, it's got 80 in it right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 6 tires back on. Just finished our test drive. Appears we were successful in getting everything back where it needs to be, down the road, smooth as you can hope for in a bone stock 49 Chevrolet 1.5 ton truck. But bring on the Christmas parades. We're just about ready.